So Canada's population grew by an estimated 273,000 people in Q1 of 2023, right? So call that, Neil, math me.
It's 0.68.
Okay, yeah. And it also grew by 362,000 people in the prior quarter, i.e. Q4 of last year. So in the last 6 months, we've grown by 630,000 people, which is approximately, call it 1.5%.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
However, real GDP grew by only 0.1% in February. Like looking at these numbers, they tell us a couple things. One, in a weird, twisted way, the GDP only growing by 0.1% in February is kind of good if your goal is to slow inflation. If we say only go up about 1% in GDP this year, and yet we grow our population by 3%, which seems crazy. Now our GDP per capita continues to decline.
Down.
So we are adding more people, but we are not growing our economy at the same rate, which what does that mean? That means there's less economic dollars per person, which means we all get a little poorer.
When I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.
Hey guys, welcome to part 1 of our weekly episodes.
Yeah, we call it part 1. I mean, this is our Monday episode. We also have a really cool episode on Thursday, which we're super stoked on. If you're interested in investing in the States, if you're interested in wholesaling, if you're interested in storage lockers,
if
you're
interested
to watch that.
In ridiculous pants,
put
a leg up, Chandler. Everyone has to turn on their video and check these things out. This is what I met Chandler, and he was wearing these. Jesus, that's an angle. For those of you that take a look online. Okay, all right, I think that's enough. We could probably take a seat. That's some shit I didn't want to see. Anyways, these are the pants that I met Chandler in, and you guys are all like, how did you go into business with him? But here we are now.
You mentioned these pants. I had not thought about these pants in forever. And as soon as you mentioned, I'm like, these pants are incredible. I had to find them. I had to significantly go through my closet. These pants are fire, man. And you know what? I wore them out once. I was so excited, and I got a very nice compliment from a guy. He actually owns a boutique downtown, beautiful boutique or something. I meant to look it up. Clearly he has phenomenal taste. And he complimented me on these pants. And I wore them today to surprise you. So these are fancy pants.
I'm so surprised. I'm flattered.
You're surprised that such
I bumped into you in the office earlier. And
I know. I wanted this to be a big reveal.
So
right away, big news. Literally, this just happened a couple minutes ago. The Fed in the States raised their overnight rate, which is equivalent of the Bank of Canada raising their rate by 25 points.
It's the end of the world.
I
actually don't feel fine at all.
So their economy was still not slowing down. It was still humming along. And so this was yet another increase. It's something 10 increases in 14 months that they've had down there, not dissimilar to us. But where we had pressed pause here, we've talked about the pressure that when the Fed does something, there's a lot of pressure on the Bank of Canada to fall in line and do the same. And then you get all the currency valuations back and forth that are problematic. So that's been thrown down by the States. Now, they do say this is hopefully going to be their last increase in a while. But we will see. We will see. It's interesting.
It makes sense on why they did it. Again, I think it's a macroeconomic thing where there's larger items at play that are causing this, not a cool off on the real estate market, because I think that's already been accomplished, and I think there's a lot of people feeling the hot water, because I know more so than Canada, the U.S. news is all, especially on the commercial side, all commercial real estate going bankrupt all over the place, and people being afraid to invest, and properties not making sense, and people getting stuck holding onto properties and interest-only payments and things like that. So, again, I think that's what's causing it, but it's crazy that they're still in that position.
One of the issues, main headline inflation came down a little bit in March to about 5% from 6%. The actual core inflation actually went up a little bit, right? And this is the same thing we struggle with. Core inflation is your your stuff that doesn't include energy and food and things like that. So it's the truest reading, I guess, if you will, of what everything else costs. So that is still creeping up for them. So yeah, I mean, it's tricky, and I'm now concerned about what that might mean for the next Bank of Canada rate announcement. There's bubbling in the market again, and fixed rates are coming down, which is part of that, demand coming with the spring market here. There's also not a direct correlation between fixed rates and variable rates, as we well know, but it could be another hit for people that are on variable rates, which leads me to a little admission that Neal was right.
Whoa!
We talked about how you're
He
saying
wore a
that,
pair of pants for me, and he brought compliments.
I know. So you mentioned that 1 in 3 Canadian mortgages were now being amortized effectively over 30 years, like beyond 30 years, because people were so underwater on the mortgages that they were making no principal payment effectively. In fact, they were accruing extra interest that they would have to pay back in a future date. So in order to hit that, you have to amortize the loan over a longer period of time to make it make sense. So I did some
And
digging.
I flipped you a screenshot of someone who had a 72-year amortization, was it?
Yeah, with no context. So
There
I'm
was no
curious about
context.
that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's
I
some
know.
sort of greasy.
It was kind of funny, though.
But
So, yeah.
yeah. But listen to this headline, and this is from Better Dwelling. We shouted Better Dwelling up before. They're fantastic. More than half of big 6 banks have a large share of mortgages with 30 or more years to go. Topping the list was BMO with nearly a third, 32.4% of their portfolio. Not far behind was CIBC with 30%, TD with 29%, and RBC with 27%. So what does this mean? Remember, you sign a mortgage that says you got 30 years to pay this sucker off. That's typical. Some people, they compress the time. But
Sounds like they wrote the article after they listened to me.
there was, almost a third of these people, even though they may have had the mortgage for a year or even 2 years, they have made zero progress on paying it down. In fact, it is now going to take them a longer period to pay it off than when they bought it. So they are upside down effectively on that mortgage. Maybe they are gaining. Maybe upside down is not the right word, because maybe they're gaining some appreciation. The property's going up in value. They have some equity in it. However, they are paying no principal.
You asked me why I'm nervous.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
It's a little sketchy.
It's a little sketchy.
It's
a little sketchy, bud.
It's similar to a credit card, but it's for your house.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, we talked about it a bunch last time, so I think we've kind of beat that one down. But I think it's a crazy place to be in. I think a lot of people, though, are, like you said, are going to take longer term, so they'll come up to the renewal, and hopefully, if long-term rates at that point are still down, because it sounds like things are changing in the long-term rate world.
Still have to qualify for them, man.
Totally, and there will be a lot of people, I think, who will need to sell. Now, I want to switch gears off that because we talk a lot about rates.
Yeah, well, that's big rate news, man. Fed increasing rates, potentially Bank of Canada going to follow. People,
I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree.
But what do you got?
I feel like we've missed talking about this, and I keep wanting to talk about it for like the last 3 episodes.
Is it the metaverse?
Why do you say it like that? Metaverse is a cool place. You wait. I can already... you're going to say that same thing. And we're here to make an admission that Neal was right as he has the headset strapped to his dome.
Yeah, I'll just full VR. I'll just VR in. It won't be me that mentions it'll be my avatar that admits it.
Ratethelandlord.org.
Ooh.
Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
So this is a website that was launched by obviously some tenants. And they've created a website where you can go and rate your landlord. And of course, great timing. Timing's everything. It's exploded. The article that I read, within the first day, they had 150 reviews.
God, I should have bought that URL.
And by a week, they had 1,000 reviews. Now, that was a couple weeks ago. I'm sure at this point now, that was a week ago. So
is this
by
Canadian
now,
or American or everywhere? It's probably...
It's Canadian.
Yeah.
It's 2 Ontario residents, so it's Toronto. So it's definitely the height place. But what are your thoughts? Like, I'll let you go first.
Was Rate My Professor a thing? Rate My Prof a thing while you were is it still a thing now?
Yeah, but there was always only like a couple reviews. Like,
really?
Unless
Okay.
a prof was like the bomb or also like psychotic, anyone in between didn't get a review.
I love that they had Rate My Prof and they would just rip or compliment someone, but they'd also have a tamale rating where you could say actually how hot the prof was at the same time. Super mature.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't surprise me. I actually sort of assumed that there were stuff like this going on anyway. I mean, a lot of Reddit just seems to be a huge
yeah, but this is a
forum for rating
formalized
prof.
section where you can
It is really
immediately
cool.
go on and look. I should check and see if I can find one here on there.
I wonder if at what point you surely can't rate. Well, maybe you can, but I feel like if you say, "Hey, I live at this address. This is my landlord. This is their name," that's
What's your company called?
maybe
Submitting
a
a review.
little privacy issue.
My thing is there's no actual confirmation that these people ever lived there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm reading through all these. It's 1 star, health and safety 1 star, respect 1 star, tenant privacy 1 star, repair 1 star, rental stability 1 star. Had a really nasty experience with blank because of the pandemic. They told me I couldn't tour the house before I rented it. When I moved in, it was filthy and full of cracks and holes. They Ceiling constantly leaked, and they refused to do anything that permanently fixed the issue. In fact, the handyman sometimes made the problems worse, once leaving a toddler-sized hole in my bathroom wall, not getting around to fixing it for the rest of
Toddler-sized? What a weird unit of measure.
That is a very... you
How tall are you? I don't know, like maybe 3.5 toddlers tall.
I would say, yeah, you're probably about yeah. Plus, mice and roaches are all over the place. Only a few months after I moved in, they announced that they were selling the house and opening it for prospective buyers to tour. One of the prospective buyers robbed my roommate of over $1,500 worth of stuff, and they did nothing. They didn't even stop sending people to tour the house without a realtor. When it finally came time for us to move out, they had prospective renters touring the house every day, all hours of the day, making it impossible for me to work from home and relax in my house. Not to mention that the realtors were rude to me while they're invading my privacy. They have a lot of properties in the city, but I'll never do business with them again after all the grief they put me through. They also made a YouTube video of themselves reading and laughing at tenant complaints, so you can see how they must feel with the
Hey,
situation.
that's kind of what you're doing.
No, Chandler.
So does
Well,
it
no,
does it name the company or the address?
Oh yeah, names the company, doesn't give an address, gives the city that they were in.
Okay.
But again, my thing is there's no way to validate any of this. So
Yeah.
it's just like this website is just could be sharing complete.
Or maybe there is on the back end, right? Like someone should have to, in order to do this.
But how are they gonna do that?
validly, You have to show just one piece of mail. Man, I lived here, and this is
What about the photos and like actual proof that took place?
Yeah,
I can
that's
write
true.
any story because I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I go to leave your apartment and now you don't give me 100% of my safety deposit back. I'm like, yeah, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on and rate your landlord and destroy you. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to give you the $100 back, even though you destroyed my unit.
Yeah, I
and
mean-
now you're holding it over my head.
Well, I wonder, it could get like Google reviews, and Google reviews has some sort of like moderation process where they can say you can file a thing that says, hey, this isn't legitimate for this reason, that. But my gosh, man, you could potentially have to be doing this like every month. You have to be checking in on your Google reviews, and I always tell people, man, well, not so much anymore because people are afraid to ask. I just be like, go around, knock on any unit in the building. Like you're here viewing the unit. If you want, knock on any unit, talk to a tenant, and if you don't like what they say, then that's your best review. Knock on the door of an existing tenant in the building. But
Yeah, I agree. I'm taking a look here. Oh, there is one. There's some from Halifax.
oh, nice.
Wow.
Oh,
Actually, there's a bunch of them from Halifax.
really?
And of course, they're all 1 stars.
Okay, cool.
Wow, there's a couple 3s. Oh, there's a 5,
Hey,
a 4, a 2,
do I recognize any names on there?
3. Oh, yeah.
Really?
1.
Interesting. Okay, so let's not.
Oh,
let's not dwell-
oh, sorry, I digress. But my one thing, I
This should be our new segment. Neil reads mean tweets.
there's yeah, there's a bunch of them on there.
Oh yeah, I know them.
Anyways, sorry, I've just digressed because it's not funny, but I do just find it like again where there's no way to legitimize what's being said. The second thing is there needs to be one of these for tenants as well. Then like
Yeah,
that's my
yeah,
only thing.
Yeah.
And it probably needs to be moderated. Well, not probably. It needs to be moderated by somebody because things can get taken out of context. And because one person feels a certain way doesn't mean that that's the truth.
Yeah.
Like
oh yeah. 100%,
anytime there's a situation like this, if you call one party, they're gonna have a completely different story than the other person.
I'm having this issue where like these people are great, and everything bad that happens in the unit. Actually, I've got 2 of these right now. Everything bad that happens in the building happens to their unit. Everything else in the entire building is perfectly fine, and these one people there's 2 groups of people in like different properties. Everything bad that could possibly happen only happens to their unit, no one else's. Like pipes froze, no other unit but theirs froze. Another one, like the person's above, they forgot to turn off the bathroom sink. They had a shower, they overflowed the sink. It just rained in their bathroom. Like the other day, their
This
faucet
just
broke
happened
off.
to me too. I went in, it was
Like-
the sweetest family, and the person above them, their tub was leaking,
Yeah.
and the whole ceiling was mangled. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. Like he had kids in there, and I was like, it looked mangled. Like it was a brand new apartment, and I was like,
This one I caught pretty quickly, but still like. And then the other day, like their diverter on their shower thing busted, right? Like it's like, oh, these people have like the worst luck. But anyway, yeah, I think there should be something like we've talked about this before, right? Like what do you want to call landlord registry / tenant registry? There's got to be something out there, even if it's just like if we get our tenancy board to a capacity and competency whereby disputes would be brought forward and logged with result. This person, this landlord, this issue, this result. Full transparency. Like,
Yeah, that
and
should
that's
be
it.
how it
Then you
is.
could just like name search someone like, okay, they had a dispute. It's like, well, you know what? That's a valid dispute,
yep.
right? Or like, oh my gosh, they got kicked out because they were 3 months behind, and like, you know, that is valid.
I agree with that.
right?
That's what they should just make what's out there now completely public,
Yeah.
and it needs to have some sort of pace. That's the other problem. I think
does,
a lot of people
yeah.
don't use it.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, this is gonna take me a year and a half, so I'll
Yeah.
just get into a wrestling match with them instead.
And in a transient like town here in Halifax, where so many students are coming, it would be impossible to keep it like up to date. However, on the plus side, and you see this now with people applying, and in bigger markets, this has been a thing for years, where like people would have to pay money just to apply to a place, and they treat it like a job interview. Even now on Facebook Marketplace, when someone reaches out, they give me their story, right? And wouldn't it be so much better for them if they could just send a link to their renter's profile, where they had positive reviews, positive ratings, like, and just be like, I'm like, man, boom, like you're good to go, right? Because you have a previous landlord's recommendation.
Tinder for landlords and tenants.
Even just something like, you know, it'd be a good model, the Airbnb model. When a tenancy terminates, both sides have to review.
And they have a legit
Right?
linked profile where it's like their driver's license is hooked to it, so there's no like, haha, screw you, and then they delete it and they start opening a new account.
Yeah, I just think it would be great because you then see this and you get to see, like, to some degree both sides of the story, but also on Airbnb, when someone, you know, asks to rent your space and you see that they're like a 5-star awesome person with great reviews,
Like
you're
myself.
actually really keen to have them as a tenant. And I'd be the same way. Like, even when someone mentions like, oh, you know, I had 2 people mention today that someone coming to view a unit was a friend or colleague of theirs. And right away I'm like, that's awesome.
Yep.
Boom. That makes me feel so good, right? And like, wouldn't a tenant want that as well? Like, if they could basically provide a resume that said, here's why I'm such a good tenant, I've got good history, blah, blah. Now, on the flip side, this is one of the things I went down the rabbit hole recently about. There are these, I mean, everyone calls everything AI these days, but there are all these new software programs being developed that effectively data scrub as much of the internet as they can, and they can do much more in the States than they can here in Canada. But they then, like, so if you give them a tenant's information, they will then scour the internet effectively and build a profile of this person and somehow then give them a ranking as to whether or not they would be a good, reliable tenant, which is a little bit dicey and scary. This is like the social credit score or whatever that some countries have for people. But like, imagine if like you Google searched and scraped someone, images, any news articles, anything they can take out of their, you know, social media profiles, anything that you can get, and then it spits out a score of like how good of a tenant they could be. It sounds like a phenomenal service. Like, I had one where, you know, the person was like, no, I don't smoke. And then I go to their Facebook and they just got a dart just hanging out of their mouth in their main profile picture. Like, you know, if I can pick that up with a computer program, they just be like, dart recognized, not a good tenant for this building. What do you think of that technology in general? You were kind of concerned as someone who maybe doesn't have the greatest Google.
No comment. No, sorry, I've done a lot of sighing as you've said this. I think it's good. I think it's good in a lot of ways, but I think it's really cool that we're going to be able to do that. But on the flip side, it's a little nerve-wracking. It's funny, I was listening to someone the other day when they're like telling a story of something that they did when they were in high school or university. And
We were telling those stories the other day.
yes, but they were talking about how there was no cell phones at that time.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like,
That was
if there
key.
were cell phones, that's what it was. It was a law debate group. And
Right.
he's like every day at lunch, hundreds of people would come and sit and listen to these guys debate. And it's like, it would get pretty goofy at times because you have a bunch of university students running them. And he's like, if you had cameras, he's like, all of us would probably be unemployed today because the shit that gets said, right? And I'm just like, not that like what they said shouldn't be considered bad or poor.
But
or
it's
in
children
poor
in their
taste.
worst moment. Shouldn't
It's
be held
children
over
at their
that,
worst moment, and I don't necessarily think that true ill intent is like founded or created from those moments. And so now it's like this weird thing of like, yeah, exactly. Now your whole life is logged. Like, pretty much now as a kid, you're like 5 years old and you're effectively starting to log an online profile.
Yeah.
And it could dictate the rest of your life. And it's like, you've lost that freedom as a child to be a child or to have your own mental thought process. And
to make some
anyways,
mistakes.
and then it continues to go forward. And where it's really sketchy is like now there's like etiquette that kids and the new generation understands. But for all of us, where we were in a world where it never was there, and now it came in. Like, if you look at everyone's Facebook for the first 5 years, there were just certain things we didn't understand that you probably shouldn't be posting.
Yeah.
Because we're like, well, I only have 100 friends, they're all my close friends, whatever. Now everyone's got 2,000 friends.
Yeah.
And it's accessible from a bunch of other people. And as they've gotten older, they get into business and this and that. And like, oh, I don't love having the picture of me loaded doing this with my friends in a park. Like, it was
Yeah.
kind of cool when I was 14. Not so cool anymore.
Yeah.
And you can maybe delete it, but it's effectively saved somewhere else.
It's been
And
out there.
it's once it's
Yeah.
hit there, it's never coming back. So
Well, the
yeah,
other
it's
thing-
kind of neat, but it also stresses me out in the sense of like, I don't really have anything to hide, but it's more just that the world's going there, and you just have, like you said, these social credit systems that are going to impact everything.
But
you
you
do.
also don't know how that algorithm is going to evolve. Like, think about it. This is just a silly example. There was a point in time where, my gosh, if a tenant showed up with tattoos and a facial piercing, you might be like, oh, well, I don't want to rent to this ruffian, right? Like, sounds silly, but like people have these preconceived notions and biases. Well,
Did you ever have earrings?
I had a nose ring for about half an hour.
By choice or
Yes, by poor choice.
okay, all right. Why'd you take it out? Just hurt really bad?
I have like a little Mosey Michael Jackson nose. And so in my head, I had this idea, man, like I was a big snowboarder for a while there. I had the long hair flowing. It was a whole vibe. And I wanted this like,
Nobody's surprised.
I wanted this gold hoop, right? Just like tight to the
You
nostril.
didn't do a stud. You did a hoop.
Well, just let me get to my story, Neil. I wanted this nice tight hoop around the nostril, gold. I thought it would look super cool.
Super dope.
So I go there. This place was by Pizza Corner. People from Halifax will know this spot, but and I go and I'm like, yeah, this is what I want. Like, yeah, we can't pierce with gold; it's too soft. So we can pierce it with a stud, though. And I'm like, I don't want a stud. Like, girls have studded nose rings. I don't want a stud. Like, okay, yeah, we'll pierce you with a ring, but it's got to be this gauge and this size. Blah blah blah. So they lie you back, right? I'm lied back. Like, all right, take a deep breath. I take a deep breath, and boom, they pierce that thing. And as I sat up like this, like I just remember, I just sit up like this, and there's a mirror right there. I'm like, okay, cool. I saw this thing. It just looked like this big, god-awful ring, right? Again, I'm like, oh, yeah, I have a very small, kind of mousy little nose. This looks terrible. And so I went back to my girlfriend at the time's place. I'm like, yo, take it out. Take it right out right now, man. Just rip it out. And she was there just like trying to rip it out. We couldn't get the sucker out. So I had to go back to the place and be like, man, here's $40. Take it out. So he was in there for about half an hour. The time it took me to get from Spring Garden to Green Street
Hey,
to back to
she
Spring
lived on
Garden.
Green Street?
She lived in Green. I told you this before.
what number? Do you remember?
I don't know.
No way.
Yeah. Anyway.
Did you ever thought about going back to get anything else?
Oh, do you have piercings? No.
Did you think about maybe doing ears before your nose?
No, man, I went straight to the nose. No, man, I this was a thing, and it was a failure. What were we talking about? Okay, so
Sorry.
this thing that is it's effectively profiling tenants,
yes.
and it runs the risk of further marginalizing people who maybe are already marginalized from the rental market.
Yeah, true.
Right? Like, so advocacies against this are saying, so you're going to basically take, what you can read at surface interpretation of my life story and maybe the people I hang around with and where maybe where I was born and all these things and make a judgment about whether or not I can achieve housing in this market. Like, that's a little bit scary. But that was one of the rabbit holes I went down. Another one, this one was amazing. So it's for like AI technology where companies are developing this software. It already exists. A landlord can set a property up on a keypad, right? And they don't even have to show the property. So it goes up for rent.
This was an idea I had long ago.
Oh well,
Continue.
Sorry, it's already happened. So someone books a showing.
Yeah.
Okay. To book the showing, they have to upload a picture of their ID, and then when they go to the property, they have to do a face scan, and the face scan has to match the photo ID. And if that goes through okay, then they are sent the code for the unit, and they can walk through the unit on their own. And when they leave and they close the door back up, they receive another text message asking if they're interested in the property and would they like a link to apply. And then, organized big landlords develop all these systems whereby you have these online services like order a request for a service call, blah, 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 blah. And the actual physical landlord or property manager is non-existent.
Amazing. I wish I should pull up my note. There's a note from like 5 years ago, and I had that in there because I'm like, yeah, honestly, I was doing showings, and I was like, this is the stupidest shit ever. I booked 10 showings, 4.5 people show up.
Yeah.
Like, no one's on time. Like,
Oh, yeah,
there
man.
is the least respect for rental showings.
I know
Which
people are like,
is-
I love the place. I really need it. Like, could you please do me this solid? I definitely want it. We're so interested. And then they don't show up. It's like, you kidding me, man? Like,
It's literally I'd say 50%
yeah.
don't show.
I
Like,
do all my
what?
showings now at one time, and it's really intimidating people because I'll be there. I'm like, all right, there's 6 of you. And they're like, just a quick question. How many units are there? I'm like, just one. And I see them looking around and sizing each other. I'm like, here's the deal. Like,
Looking at people's
in
cars,
my
people's
experience,
nose
like,
rings.
40 people respond to the ad. 10 of them complete an application. 6 of them say they want to come. Only 3 of them show up. Right? Like, so.
Then 2 on it.
Yeah. I'm so excited for our guests today. That's why I'm a little bit riled up, man. I can't stress enough. Well, not today. The episode's going to come out on Thursday. Thanks you to all of you guys who are watching both episodes on Monday and Thursday. I hope you're finding it more digestible. As always, man, share the content. I want to see it on your stories. We want the questions. We love it. It's fantastic. But the one coming out on Thursday, we love storage lockers. Super cool. They're going down to the States, but they started in Montreal and then they moved to New Brunswick. So if you're listening in New Brunswick, it'd be really cool to hear these folks' stories. But anyway, transitioning to your other thing there.
It's not that mind-blowing, but Toronto police arrest man 18 in roofing scam. It's an article from City News.
Roofing scam?
Yes.
Okay.
An 18-year-old, which I'm like...
You kind of respect the hustle? Is that where you're going with this?
Yes. It's a crime, though. But basically, he was going door to door, looking at people who had bad roofs or missing shingles.
Yep.
Giving them a price to do the roof. And then taking a deposit. And he was actually getting companies to go and do the work, but then he wasn't paying the companies.
Oh, wow. So at least the people, you know what? He's like victimless crime. The homeowners get a new roof. Presumably the guys doing the roofing get paid, but some bigger corporation eats it. That's probably his justification. I'm not justifying it, to be clear. But the homeowner, you're like, man, I got the roof done.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that's quite exactly how it went. I think the
No.
person that was getting hosed was the subcontractor.
Yeah, that's, I suppose, because that guy is probably still getting the money from the homeowner.
Yeah.
So this isn't a
So
Robin Hood.
the example given is he quoted a roof for $18,500. The homeowner gave him a deposit for half.
Nice roof.
The next day, a crew showed up to do it, asked for another $3,000 to buy supplies. And they were like, well, that's a little weird because we just gave you $9,000. And then, sure enough, they did the roof. And then the company was like, probably went to the young kid to
Okay.
get paid.
Yeah.
And like, yo, what the hell?
Or went to the homeowner. The homeowner's like, I already paid you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, really the main point of the article, no one's really blown away by a scam like that. They take place all the time. It's unfortunate that things are like this because you should be able to believe someone coming. And the tough part with that, what this does is for all the young people that are trying to hustle and actually make a legitimate business, they're about to get, like, it just makes it so much harder. Now people are like, well, I'm only going to go with the big brand name.
Yeah.
Because like we hear about young kids all the time knocking people off. But
I mean, if you can't trust an 18-year-old roofer, who can you trust? Right? Nothing says trustworthy like roofer and 18 years old in the same sentence. No? Okay.
All right, fine, Chandler.
Sorry.
I'm just saying I just thought it was interesting that he was so young and would think of doing something like that.
Yeah.
But I guess also that much money at that
He's
age.
going to run it. He's going to have a startup and he's going to make a bunch of money and then again end up in jail somehow.
for $100 million
Yeah.
the next time.
Yeah.
Now, hit me. You had said some funny stuff you told me you wanted to say, or some interesting stories.
I think I already did. It was the rabbit hole that I went down with all that,
your rabbit
that
holes.
AI stuff, man. I just it's kind of it's kind of wild, but I'd be curious to hear from people in Toronto right now because apparently the number of sales are going up, the condo sales are going through the roof, the pre-con stuff is just popping off, man. It makes me a little bit nervous about another perhaps increase in the overnight rate because apparently, man, it is just giving her.
Which is so weird because there was so much news that came out. It's like people are just barely floating their rates.
Yeah, but well, the person though going out and getting a mortgage now is not the same person that is already in the mortgage, right? Like there's going to be this weird thing that happened over a 3-year span. You're going to have people from 2020 and 2021 who are going to have really high appreciation of value, but potentially really high rate.
Yeah.
And they're going to likely be okay, and hopefully they're getting some advice to now opt into a product that's a bit safer,
Yeah.
right? From a variable perspective, like opt into something fixed
Yeah.
if they haven't already. But they also have this great runway of, man, like, I made 15% on the value of my home in 24 months. Like, I'm good. right? Then you have these people who are going to have perhaps purchased at the height of the market this time last year and are in a world of hurt, but are going to fight tooth and nail to hold that home for another 5 years. And if they do sell, it's not like they can just voluntarily say, all right, I'm just going to cut my losses and sell it for 10% less than I pay. It's like, it doesn't work that way. You're accruing more and more interest from the bank. Like, you're going to owe them extra money, so you can't sell that home quite as easily because we don't have short sales in the same way as the States, right? Like, so, like, it's not like that. There's going to be that influx of homes. And then you have people coming to the market right now who are like, okay, rates are a little bit more stable. So I'm not going to opt into a variable product, but I'm paying like pretty high prices. So like you have 3 incredibly different profiles in 36 months, like incredibly different profile. And those are effectively peers, man. Like you could go to a party, where everyone there is the same age and their housing and mortgage situation is just vastly different.
Yeah. Yeah, insanely different.
And there's one just drinking out in the corner, and like they have the worst situation. Bought at a high with variable cheap money.
And the other person showed up with ace of spades and just popping
Yeah,
champagne.
the first guy's just there like with a cigar, like, man, I went fixed. I don't know. It was 2020. I went fixed. He's at like 2.5, and he bought his
I
home
took a
for
10-year
dirt.
fix at 2.5.
Yeah, he's like, just doing keg stands.
So you're still strong behind the market, feeling good.
Well, man, all these things, you have to look at things in
Because like you just said, if you're upside down
context.
in that mortgage, prices are moving up, let's say a little bit, but effectively staying flat because we're in that like sub 5% growth range.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nuanced. It's super nuanced. Like this is where we're getting into the shit that we've talked about in the past, which is like how to pick a really good piece of property that will survive anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're seeing that here. The great streets
Yeah, they're still
are
moving.
still
moving.
moving and booming, but
Yep.
the ones that aren't so great are kind of sitting.
Yep. And I mean, like, I just
but they
showed...
were paying. People are paying the same price for those not so long ago, and so now if you're literally getting further behind on that house,
Yep.
and it's not really going anywhere in value.
Yep. And I think we've probably shown a couple homes. I know I have where like, oh, we are going to buy this home for less than someone paid for it a year ago. And there's always a story that like, but usually the story starts with, well, they're not in the province. It's like, oh, okay. So they came here during like the Nova Scotia gold rush. Like, and then there's usually some sort of thing like, and they have other endeavors that currently have their attention and good opportunities have come across their desks. Like, oh, you mean the opportunity to get out of a mortgage that went from 2% to 6%? Like, so we are seeing a little bit of that, but again, those are in like someone who just hit the absolute worst point on it.
Yeah, on the commercial deal side too, I'm seeing a lot of stuff fall apart.
Are you?
Yeah, like I feel like there's a ton of things that I offered on. We were talking about them.
Yeah.
I lost the bids, and now they're coming back around, and that's consistently happening. And it's like, I don't know. I know inventory is like. Inventory is a problem, and I saw an article this morning saying that immigration is outpacing what it was last year.
So here's one. Like, let's just lean into Neal's fear. So
I'm afraid. Be afraid with me.
So Canada's population grew by an estimated 273,000 people in Q1 of 2023.
Okay.
Right. So call that how many percentage of our overall population? Say we're about 40 million. Neal, math me.
It's 0.6.
Okay. Yeah.
8.
And it also grew by 362,000 people in the prior quarter, i.e. Q4 of last year. So in the last 6 months, we've grown by 630,000 people, which is approximately, call it 1.5%.
Yep.
Right? That's how many new people. And honestly, like most of the people we're bringing in are probably, with working skills. Like they're not all little babies, right? Like these are people that are supposed to come here and contribute to our GDP. However,
babies to countries.
Let's bring in all these babies. It'll work. Real GDP grew by only 0.1% in February, and they were hopefully, we're gunning for 0.3%. Now, having said that, it did grow by 0.6% in January, which seemed kind of robust. But again, like looking at these numbers, they tell us a couple things. One, in a weird, twisted way, the GDP only growing by 0.1% in February is kind of good if your goal is to slow inflation, right? Because GDP is very much in line with inflation. They move together as GDP growth goes up, especially on a per capita basis, inflation goes up. So slowing GDP is kind of a necessary part of slowing inflation. However, if we say only go up about 1% in GDP this year, and yet we grow our population by 3%,
Two and a
which
half,
seems
yeah.
crazy. Now our GDP per capita continues
Going
to decline.
down.
And we talked about this in a previous episode because we have a low net worth. As a country, our net worth relative to our household debt and our after-tax income is not good, but also from being a standard of living, what's Canada's rank in the world when it comes to being a great place to live, quality of life, we are declining because one of the main measures is GDP per capita. So we are adding more people, but we are not growing our economy at the same rate, which what does that mean? If the economy stays stagnant and the people grow up, that means there's less economic dollars per person, which means we all get a little poorer, kind of.
Yep.
Right? So GDP per capita is a really important indicator. And right now we're doing this thing where we keep growing our population and we're not growing our economy as quickly, which we're hoping. We've talked about this. This is kind of just referring back to another episode because people hopefully listen to that episode. We hope that these new to country people actually start really contributing to our economy. In order to do that, we need to give them better supports. We also need to really invest in the people that are still here and the people that are looking to do startup things. But I thought you'd like that number because you just like bad news.
So many people have messaged me and been like, chill with the negative stuff. It's not negative. It's how I feel. It's realistic. But yeah, I think there's enough supports in place for the immigrants. I'm not an immigrant, so I can't really speak to it. And I'm sure there's some of you that maybe disagree. I would love to have you on here.
There's supports in getting them here. But my gosh, man, we don't have the housing for them.
Yes.
Right? They're being essentially pigeonholed into jobs that are below their capabilities.
Let me finish.
All right.
If there's more investment in supporting the people that are here already, they'll be able to create more housing in time for the people that show up. Additionally, they'll be able to create larger and better businesses that can also employ the people that show up.
Preach.
So
love it. I love
and
that.
It goes back to what we talked about last time, which is invest in your actual population that you have here. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be an investment of adding money. Just stop taking all the money, aka chill on the business taxes. And I'm not even saying it because I don't necessarily pay a bunch of business tax, but I just know people that are in the business world that are like, yo, I am done with this shit. And you'll see with our guest, they started in Canada and they're now in the States.
Out.
And wait till you hear why they went.
Yeah.
And same with Dubai. They are now having hundreds of thousands, if not what they say, millions of people that are trying to immigrate because they're offering tax incentives. Yeah. And people are like, okay, I'm going to go there and operate my business. And so the city as a whole is booming in every industry.
Yeah.
Right? So anyways, we've gone on that a million times. Sorry for the negativity. I'm going to promise next time what we're going to do is we're going to add some value. We're going to give you guys some tips and tricks, as well as only do fun articles.
Only
we have
fun
to
articles?
for one episode. I can't. Okay. I leave here every time stressed out. There's not enough hair left. Can someone please sponsor me for some hair growth? I'm not putting a product on there. I want plugs.
I would love to see you get your hair cut on air. There's someone out there that can just really give you a nice fit up. Actually, do as well, man.
Mike would do it.
What's that?
My barber will do that. He would love to do that.
Okay, well, I get my fades from Lucky Cat, man. This is how I look. Actually, I'm a little ragged, man. I got to get cleaned up here. But
so your fade's not fading right now?
No, I like a little more length right now.
Yeah, it looks good. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Yep.
Check out part 2. They're really good.
Thanks so much for watching the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. Don't forget to subscribe. But also check us out on Instagram and TikTok. You can find all the links below. Thanks again for checking us out.
Broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.